Welcome back to the 604 Garage. Today we are doing 4th gen F-body seats in your 2nd gen F-body. Alright, well I already have 94 Trans Am leather seats in my 81 Camaro here, so I had to go on Marketplace and find something that was cheap enough for me to actually put out a video, and I found another set of seats. I actually found them on a 3rd gen forum, but as you know, or if you didn't know, 3rd gen and 4th gen F-bodies have a very similar layout. The floor pan is basically the same. So I thought, well, if a 4th gen seat can't be found, I'll look and find a 3rd gen seat. And lo and behold, I found a 3rd gen guy who was actually selling a 4th gen seat. So he had found a used car and bought a used car and upgraded his seats. And of course, he was able to sell me a pair of old seats, and one of them is a 4th gen seat. So I'll show you on that 4th gen seat how to adapt and put one in the car. So the way I did it, or the way I'm going to show you how to do it, is by using the 2nd gen seat tracks and the 4th gen seat, and I'll show you why in a second. But the first thing I gotta do, because I only have one set of 2nd gen seat tracks, is I've gotta take one of the seats out of the 81 here so I can show you exactly how it all goes down. Okay, so all you need is a few simple tools to take the seat out, and of course I've already modified a 4th gen seat, but I'm gonna use a 1/2 inch or 13 mil socket, a 1/2 inch 13 mil wrench, and I'm gonna use my trusty Phillips here to, well, I'll show you what I'm going to do with that. So we'll open our door up here, and I'm going to use the Phillips, and I'm going to take this little seatbelt loop here, or this little ear that goes in the back of this 4th gen seat off. I'm not going to take the seatbelt out of the car, I don't need to do that, and then I'll rip the seat out here. I'll take the 4 13 millimeter or 1/2 inch bolts out, and I say 13 millimeter because this is an 81. In 81, a lot of things in the body went to metric. A little bit of information for you guys. That's why a 3rd gen or an IROC steering box bolts so easily into a 1981 Camaro. All the lines, the pressure and return line, are all metric, and all the fittings work out. Anyhow, back to the seats. We'll take the seats out and I'll show you why I want to use the 2nd gen track. Alright, now I've got the 94 Trans Am leather seats out of the 81. I'm going to show you exactly why I choose to go this way, which is using the 2nd gen seat track with the 4th gen seat. Alright, so here we are zoomed in on the seat, and this is what I'm saying. The leg on the right in the picture, which is actually on the left, is touching the tabletop. The leg on the left in the picture, which is actually on the right when you're sitting in the vehicle, is not. There's about 1.5 inches or so, maybe even a 2-inch gap there. This means that the floor in the 2nd gen is not completely flat. So next I'll put the 4th gen seat up onto the table, and I'll show you how the seat tracks look on those seats. Alright, so here's our 4th gen seat, and you can see the seat tracks of the 4th gen seat are basically flat. So the way I'm going to do this then is I'm going to use the 2nd gen tracks because they contour and they fit the 2nd gen floor better. They bolt into the actual spots that our seat is designed to bolt into. There are threaded bosses in there, and those are where the seat would be the most structurally sound. A lot of guys may try to bolt these in and just drill holes in the floor. I mean, that can be done, but I'd rather go with where the seats are supposed to be bolted in the first place. So what that entails is that I can't use the 4th gen tracks, and I've got to use the 2nd gen tracks. So I've got to adapt the 2nd gen tracks to the 4th gen seat. So now this may not be the easiest way. It does require a little bit of fabrication. It does require a little bit of welding. So I'm going to show you how I did it in my 81 Camaro with the 94 Trans Am seats. I'm going to demo it on this wet, crusty, used 94, 95 base model fabric seat. Well, I got seats everywhere, and I got nowhere to work. I gotta move the car out of the garage. Well, I got the seat out, so I gotta put the seat back in the car and move the car out of the garage, and then we'll get some space here. Okay, now that we've got some space in the garage, I got the 94 donor seat here on the Workmate. We gotta gut this seat track because we don't need it. So let's yank this off and then we'll take a look at the surgery we need to do to fit the second gen track. And no more 4th gen seat track, so we can bin that guy. Or maybe we would keep it for another project. Hang on to the hardware, this could be handy as well. So let's get the 2nd gen seat track off the other 4th gen seat and let's match that up because we're gonna put it on here. We wanna see how everything lines up and what we need to do. We need to do a little bit of cutting and a little bit of adapting, and I'll show you that. Okay, got the 2nd gen brackets or sliders, whatever you wanna call them. They are different pieces, or 2 separate pieces. So you can see these bolt holes here are what you want to use, but of course, this bracket sits a bit high, or the slider sits a bit high, so you have to do some clearancing in these areas right here. So you're gonna be notching here and notching here. So I'll go ahead and I'll do that notch. I'll draw that out. I'll loosely install some of this longer hardware that I have. Like so. Which will tell me exactly where this needs to go. And I'll notch that. And one thing you'll also need to do on the 2nd gen seat is you'll actually have to open this hole up a bit, hog this hole out a bit, so the bolt going into the 4th gen seat has a straight shot. Otherwise there's not enough room, you'll be on an angle. So open this up a little bit, bolt that in loosely, and then you can trace around properly. I actually find it pretty remarkable how with little trimming right here, these 2nd gen brackets bolt basically right to the same holes that the 4th gen brackets bolt to on these seats. So it's almost like they're meant to be here, aren't they? Okay, so before you cut, just check one more time. You should have a mark here on the bottom. Looks like that. And then up on the top, looks like that. So you're only taking a little bit out to allow the 2nd gen seat track to sit lower. We're still gonna have it, you know, it's still gonna be sitting up a little bit, and I've got some spacers, but we're gonna still need that seat track to sit a little bit flusher to the bottom of the seat, or a little bit closer to the bottom of the seat. What is it that they say? Measure, cut, how many times? Measure, cut twice, measure once? I don't know, something like that. Let's go. Alright, what you should have when you're done is something that looks like that on the forward part of the seat and that on the rear of the seat. Okay, so I've got these little spacers here, and this is where these spacers come in. These are about 1/2 inch thick, and I don't know where I got these honestly, but I have them. So you need to get yourself some little spacers. You can get a piece of round tubing or something like that and cut down to size. You could probably use a bunch of washers and stuff like that, but anyways, we're gonna use these and we're gonna space that out a little bit, that 2nd gen seat track, and you're gonna see how it fits right on this 4th gen seat. So here we go. Our clearancing worked out well. I mean, look at that. It drops right down. You could actually almost bolt it directly, but here's why you need a spacer. Let's take this off before it lands on my foot. This is why you need a spacer, because there's still contact there's contact with this rear spring, which holds the lower structure and everything of the second gen seats. So there's a lot of other things here. So spacing it up a little bit ain't gonna be a problem. Now, no, I'm 6'2" and I can still sit in my car with a helmet on. So these 4th gen seats, they do sit really, really low. So I wouldn't worry about head clearance. You know, I do autocross this car. No issues whatsoever with a helmet. There's still like that much space above my head. Yeah, T-tops for the win maybe, but anyhow, it should be fine even if you have a hard top. Okay, spacer and longer bolt. Wait a second, can I use those bolts I yanked out of this seat in the first place? So here is the bolt I took out of these seats. I told you to save them. Why was I thinking that? I mean, I've done this years ago. Oh, because they actually will work in a pinch. Now, even though these go in, I don't think I would use them. Now I'm thinking about this again, or remembering what I did like 10 years ago when I did this. There's not enough thread engagement. So I mean, this is your seat. You're sitting in this part here. There's backrest and your whole body in the seat. That's a lot of leverage pulling on these threads. These are pulling these threads in tension or trying to rip them out. So I would go with a little bit longer bolt here because you want more thread engagement, and there's a lot of thread in here to engage too. So that's why instead of going with the factory bolt, like so, I go with a longer one, which is about another ½ inch longer. So basically, just about the width or the thickness of that spacer that I'm putting in. So you've still got, once you put this ½ inch longer bolt in there, you've still got the same sort of safety as you did with the OEM bolt. So we will put our spacer in the front hole. Threads in nicely. Again, we had to clearance this a little bit, and while we're in there, we will pull this too short now OEM bolt out. I guess that's why I've got a bin of these somewhere. There we go. Boom. There we go. Now you've got a nicely spaced, nicely positioned seat track from a 2nd gen Camaro on your 4th gen seat, and this is only the one side. So there you have it. You've got your right side seat track of your front seat. Now this is a driver's seat or a left seat, and you've got your right hand seat track bolted to it. But to put the left hand seat track on the left seat or the driver's seat, we've got to do a bit more modification, and I'll show you that next. All right, so this is where you need your super mad fab skills. I mean, that was a piece of cake over there, right? So this is where you need your left-hand seat track, and you're gonna add this or bolt this on to your seat. So let's see if it sits down or uses these spacers and interferes with anything, all right? Let's see if that does that. And as you can see, this will bolt right on there, guys. This will have no issue bolting right on there. So we line up the back bolt easily enough. All right, there's no interference here. There's no spring interfering. It's more outboard, but there is a problem. I can see that already. And let me actuate this back, move the track all the way back, and I'll show you what the problem is. I'll see if I can get the camera in here. Okay, here's the issue here. You've got to extend and add a little tab to your 2nd gen track because the 2nd gen isn't long enough. The track isn't long enough. So I'll flip this over and I'll show you what I had to do. This is where you're going to need a welder, or maybe you could do something else with rivets or a bolt, but I mean, really, this is your seat track. I wouldn't want that to come apart, so a welder is the way to go. All right, so here is the other track, or the left side track. So I welded a tab on here because right where this bolt would go through, you can see that, it's the end of the rail. So you got to add a bit of material. Again, it's about ½ inch. So get yourself some flat stock or something like that, Thicker the better, right? 1/4 inch, probably minimum, and then just weld a tab and drill a hole for that to go through. That will line up basically with the holes. That's probably about how much I had to massage or machine or grind the other side. Remember the other side forward bolt hole on the 2nd gen seat track needed a little bit of clearancing, a little bit of elongating, or that slot. Well, that's probably the same thing here. Basically these holes, and I'll show you once I zoom out. So basically the holes in the seats, you know, forward to aft, are about 1/2 inch too short. So you need to lengthen everything a little bit. But once you add this tab here, then you're good to go. You can bolt that right in. There's no cutting or anything of the metal structure underneath the seat because of how far outboard the seat tracks bolt. So we'll bolt that on, and then let's see how it fits in the car. Did I do a good job? So easy bolt this on. Everything now lines up. You've got your little tab on the front. You've got your longer bolts, 1/2 inch longer. Your 1/2 inch longer spacers. Don't forget a washer. I like to put a washer. You could even put a lock washer in here. Might be a good idea. Maybe, I don't know, Loctite, whatever makes you feel safe. Do that. And this is your seat. You're sitting in here. You know, I'm 200 and whatever. I'm not going to disclose my weight. I'm over 220, and I'm sitting in a seat leaning against a backrest and moving all over the place as I'm driving around. Maybe I'm doing autocross, maybe I'm doing road racing, maybe I'm slamming on the brakes, or maybe I've got slicks on the car and I'm accelerating really hard. You know, that's a lot of leverage on that seat. You're putting a lot of force right through your seat track and right into your floor. You know, all that fun stuff. And now what you need to do is simply hook this up. Now you got to line up the tracks because they're independent, right? They're moving separately. So line up the tracks. This one's a bit harder to do, but we'll match it something like this, and then we'll simply go through. All right, well, as I was going to connect this wire, which connects both seat tracks together, so when you move this lever, it unlocks both seat tracks, it snapped. So I guess you're gonna see a repair video as well. I'm gonna try to use a piece of coat hanger and make another wire here, because I don't have anything that's strong enough. It's kind of brittle. This one, I tried bending it a little bit and it just snapped right off. So be careful with these. I guess we will cut this off. We don't need this anymore. Try to work in this piece. Somewhere like that. Bending somewhere here. Okay, locked, locked. Ooh yeah, unlocked, unlocked, locked, locked. So there you go, coat hanger repair for the win. Well, there you have it. 4th gen seat with a 2nd gen track bolted to the 2nd gen Camaro. The seat is on the ground. If you wanted to raise that up a little bit, you could put spacers, but lots of headroom. So spacing it out, longer spacer, go with a longer bolt, of course, and I'm talking spacing the seat on top of the track or spacing the track from the seat. Otherwise, yeah, they fit. Do they go forward and back? And they lock back? They work. There you go. Alright, well that's the end of this video. Thank you for stopping by the channel, and I hope you learned something. I hope you learned how easy it is to actually put 4th gen seats in a 2nd gen. This should work for all types of 2nd gens and all types of 4th gens. Minor variations, of course, but you get the idea. Very minimal fab required. You need a little bit of a cutter. Now I'm still using air, but you need, you know, some sort of a die grinder or angle grinder with a cutting bit on there. And you need to find someone with a welder if you don't have a welder, but it's very easy to tell them what to do. You could even hose clamp, you know, a piece of metal on there with a hole drilled in it and have them weld that on, make that tab. So thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we will see you in the next video. Take care.